should we start with the could've and did've match?
You've won it again, Jim.
We have.
The end. Right, let's move on to Wales Island.
It's not even a thing now. I'm going to ask Dan first. Hand on heart, right? Be honest, because caused a few dramas myself with the England players in the week. Like Ben Earl weren't happy. I don't think some of the boys were happy because producer Rob did a hell of an edit on a video saying that I had Scotland to win by 15. I actually had them by 8, but I did say 15 at some point. And, well, blow me down. Wasn't I right?
Well, this is the thing. You can say these things on a podcast, but when people say put your money where your mouth is, you bottled a bet, didn't you, with Austin?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Because you said, okay, I meant by 8 points. I said by 8 points.
But I did say by 8 points on the podcast.
Yeah, but then also Austin comes at you on social media and says, should we have a bet on it? We'll have $1,000. Mm. And you went, oh no, I'll go $1,000 on Scotland just to win.
I heard it was the weather. I heard it was raining. So I didn't want to double down on it. But Biggs, be honest, mate, because we went back and forth. Did you have Scotland winning that game before?
I had Scotland by 5. I thought Scotland would win. That's what when I did my bit for Daily Mail, I had Scotland by 5 to win that game. And I was a little bit panicking after the first 10 minutes of that game for my prediction. But I got to be honest, I thought Scotland were very, very worthy of their win. I thought they were by far the better team over the course of the 80 minutes, and if anything, probably deserved a bigger margin for victory. I thought they rallied well after that first sort of 10 minutes, and I had them by 5, but I thought they were well deserving of their 9-point victory.
No, that's enough from Dan Biggar now. Thanks, Dan. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
I was very happy.
Yeah.
And I know if you go based on social media, I haven't been on my phone that much. I haven't watched the game back, so I've only watched it in stadium.
I've watched it back.
No, I'm sure you have, but I haven't gone through it with a fine-tooth comb.
Do you know what it looked like to me, boys? I don't know what you thought. It looked to me as if it was one team that looked completely in control of how they wanted to play, and the other team looked as if they were almost forcing a way to play.
That's what we said.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
that's what we said in the lead-up.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure England really are that comfortable playing the way that they're playing.
That's what we said.
And for me, I don't care what style of rugby you play. Me personally, as long as it's winning rugby. And if England, I appreciate you've got to grow the game, but at the minute with the players that they're picking, that England team doesn't look comfortable in the way that they're playing. And if you want to play this more exciting brand rugby, then pick everybody who plays for Quins and Northampton.
Here we go.
Or you go back to your type, which effectively got the job done in the second half against Wales, because they went back to type and they battened down the hatches a little bit and reverted to type and got the job done really well. So you kind of, if you're always dictated to the style of play you play by your players. And for me, it just looked as if Scotland were completely comfortable in the way that they were playing, and England looked a bit uncomfortable, to be honest, in how they played.
I think, I don't want to go. We're going to talk about how England played, but first and foremost, let's talk about Scotland, because they've won the last 4 Calcutta Cups, deservedly so. It used to be a thing of Scotland when I played, and historically it'd be Scotland might win once in a blue moon. Now it's like England might win once in a blue moon. It's flipped completely, hasn't it? Now, with someone like Duhan Van Der Merwe, just ridiculous. Last year, he scores the wonder try at Twickenham. This year, from the turnover.
Freak, yeah.
Yeah, an absolute freak of nature. The second try, he scores. He's just like a man mountain, isn't he? So they make the break, and there's loads of little intricate things you can talk about, and maybe we'll go into those depths. But credit Scotland. I actually didn't think Scotland, and this is, might sound... You've had your second biggest win ever against us.
And we didn't play that well.
You didn't play that well.
No.
But you were always, like Big said, they were in control of how, Finn, even Gregor comes out of the game and said, that last 20 minutes we should have ran with the ball more. Finn controlled the game beautifully without, just producing moments of magic or chucking it around. And in the first 10 minutes, I think, 18 minutes in, we're 10-0 up and looking comfortable. And we were putting Scotland under pressure with the Blitz, and there was a few errors, but they stuck at that, and then they profited from an England error, a bit of magic from Duhan Van Der Merwe to go 60 odd
another
meters.
England error and another
and then another error from scrum time. They make the break, they capitalise, and they were so clinical. Even Cam Redpath comes on, and Finn gets his kick charge down. England are at 6s and 7s. Cam's, there's a little nudge from Finn on Ollie Lawrence, which is, perfectly fine. But England are all honeypotted to the ball, and, Cam makes the break, and then England are all over the shop, and Finn pulls out the perfect kick. They did come from some England errors, but Scotland were always looking like they were going to win that game once they got that first try.
The storm,
and they didn't play that as well as they could.
No,
so it just shows how good they can be.
Exactly, and like Dan said, and like a lot of people are saying, and like we were chatting about last week, like how Scotland are going to play, right? As in, there's a clear identity with Finn there, with the wide passes into the channel. Can they get past the Blitz? I know we were joking about it before we came on, but that one kind of, it was a bit of a clutch kind of crossfield kick, wasn't it? That went into Duhan's hands for, or bounced and then into his hands for the hat-trick try. But there's a clear identity there of how they want to play. And I saw enough in the game against France in the first half. In the first half against Wales, I feel as if we've got power in our team now with Jack Dempsey at 8. He can get over the gain line. You've got George Turner. You've got Scott Cummins. You've got these lads that come on to the ball with a little bit of pace and can kind of give us the opportunity then to play wide. But what impressed me the most was how much pressure we were under for the first 10 or 15 minutes. There'd been this big build-up. We've got England's number. All the emotional drivers that England came with the passing of Jamie George's mum. And they came with a really kind of simple game plan, or so it seemed. And it looked like they, from where I was watching and feeling it, that they had the same energy and the same kind of game plan, which they did change, as they had against South Africa. That up and under game, the short box kicks, the kind of 50-50 balls to knock back, and then they were winning the kind of, whatever, I don't know what you call them, Biggs or Goodey, we call them the crumbs, that were kind of bouncing around, like them 50-50s. They scored off first phase off the scrum, and I'm thinking, fucking hell, quote unquote, England are on. Yeah. Like the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, they were on physically. Sam Underhill breakdown. They were banging boys. They were physical. But the thing that impressed me most about Scotland was the fact that we rode that storm. We didn't start well, and we got ourselves into the game. And like Goody said, like, as much as I agree with Biggs as well, that the identity, we look comfortable, but we look comfortable being uncomfortable against a team that were fighting for their lives and they were desperate. And then just on that England point as well, that was the thing we were chatting about last week, Biggs, is like you don't like, as in, how are you going to play? You bring Ben Spencer on, he's a box kicking. I think that suits England, but then you've got Feo Webosa, who's a freak of nature, who needs to get the ball in hand as much as he wants, but you've got no Freddie Stewart in there. You bring George Martin on the back row and he drops that kick in the backfield. Even like, how many times has he been in that position? Do you know what I mean? So they are still kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, my issue with it is, and how England played, started well, accurate. I know accuracy went, and then, might sound a bit harsh saying this, we looked lost in attack. We were going one-out runners. Genji was trying his hardest, but there was no structure to our attack. I felt George Ford went missing, which some people might think that's a bit harsh, but I'm comparing this to, I was chatting to someone in the pub, and I'm comparing this to Biggs. Biggs is on it now, comparing him to Owen Farrell. When your 10 is the alpha, the leader, balling at people, telling them where to be, what to do, like, we had none of that after 20 minutes. It was all like just waiting for someone to try something or do something. There didn't seem to be any structure, and we looked very lost in attack, and we've got an inexperienced coaching team in terms of under Steve. Wiggy's a good mate of mine, right? Richard Wigglesworth. He's our attack coach. But between what they're doing on the training field, if they are, I presume they're looking to evolve and have shape and identity in attack, to then on the field, it disappeared, and the energy of our performance, and we were slow. Our ruck speed was really slow. One-out runners, which obviously makes it easier to defend against. And when you need someone to stand up and as a 10 and lead and telling boys what to do, because what it's like, Dan. It's like herding sheep sometimes, isn't it? With forwards.
I got to be honest. I never felt. When you guys just mentioned now, England started really well, got to a 10-0 lead. I always felt like Scotland had the ability, because they know their game really well, to come back into the game. But I never felt for 1 minute, I don't know what you guys thought, I never felt once Scotland got ahead, I never felt like there was going to be or England had the ability to come back and claw that game back, if that makes sense, because almost every time that they gained a little bit more momentum, they'd go to that sort of slowing the game down, box kicking it, and weren't really getting a huge amount from it. And I think probably summed up where the two teams were, that when you are comfortable in how you play and you've got a little bit more confidence in your ability, you find a way to get back into games and you find a way to ride out the tough times. Whereas when you probably are still trying to find that identity and find that confidence in how you're trying to play, it's so much harder to get back into it. And your point, Goodey, on George Ford, I thought George Ford the week before, or 2 weeks before against Wales, grabbed that game by the scruff of the neck in that second half and dragged his team through, and probably was probably unable to do that this week because of so many errors that they made as a team. And I just felt like that probably didn't help him as well. But it was a really tough watch if you're an England fan that second half. I've got to be honest. I thought Scotland looked comfortable throughout the whole period, really. Yeah. I thought.
Until Feo Boso comes on, there's no one, I don't think.
Freak.
Yeah, he's a freak. There's no, and George Martin had a little dig as well. There's no one really running with spite or trying to, run over, run round, break a tackle. It just seemed lackluster at times, and they seemed.
He offers something a bit different, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
He
does.
Yeah, and every time he got the ball, he looked scary, and that's where, it's interesting listening to Dan say that. I don't know whether this is my history of playing against England, but I was worried about our bench coming on. So when Joe Marler comes on against Elliot Miller-Mills, who's fourth choice for Northampton, I'm thinking, fucking, as you just naturally worried, right? Yeah. As it's Joe Marler coming on, our bench has struggled historically in games before. The strength and depth of Scotland has been brought into question. I've questioned it as well. So I was a little bit worried. But yeah, I just think things started going our way. We did, whatever the rub of the green is, but you know what I mean? The bounce of the ball, the crumbs started bouncing up. Like the scrum, we held our own. We got a couple of kind of short free kicks off the back of that. And as much as it was a scrappy performance, in a way, it felt such a complete performance.
Yeah, controlled.
For Scotland as well.
It was a very un-Scotland performance almost, Jim, wasn't it? In terms of winning those types of scrap. We're all very capable, or we all know that they're capable of playing some brilliant rugby and sort of probably a little bit sort of when the highs are really high in the game, they're magnificent. But when they're not on it, then things are a bit more catastrophic. Whereas I think this Six Nations, and probably is summed up a little bit by Finn as well, in terms of, I think Finn's had a really, really good Six Nations. But what I think has been really good for him and for the team is that he's almost been just quite level. And he's just been 100%. Quite, rather than having loads of high moments and then some really low moments, which kind of is what you associate with Scotland. I think he's just been pretty constant, pretty accurate in what he's done, few errors. And the rest of the team have kind of fed off that. Because all of a sudden at 10-0 down, if Finn decides he's got to try and pull a rabbit out of the hat, and then all of a sudden you go 17-0 down from a charge down kick or an interception.
That's what I was hoping for. That is what I was hoping for.
Yeah, but even how you're talking about Finn being level. So he turned up to the live show on Thursday, 48 hours before, loads of hysteria, and he was very direct in terms of what his captaincy there. We were like, "Can you chop a pint?" He's like, "Of course not." Game in 48 hours, but the old Finn would have chopped a pint. Okay. But he's very clear on what was coming. We were like, how do you think England are going to play? They're going to rush me in defence. They're going to put me on the floor. Very different to playing against France, where they rush on the players outside. So he knew what was coming. But the one for me was chatting to him after. And again, he had a can of Tennent's in his hand, and it's Finn, right?
Can of Tennent's.
Loves it, mate.
How old school's
He was
Tennent's.
keen for a scrap, you could say. And it was warm as well. I was like, that a fucking boy. But as in,
you can't drink Tennent's cold. No. They have to be just from the shelf.
That's exactly what he said. And listening to him talk about how level he was in his mind as captain, and respectful, but he was like, we expected to win.
Yeah.
As in, we expected to beat England, and we know we've got a job to do in Rome.
Yeah.
We want to get to Ireland and be in a position which we know, bonus points that we've dropped and stuff like that, we're probably going to struggle. But as a captain, as a leader, as a lad that puts a smile on people's face, just the level that he's got now, he's grown up. That's what it feels like. The control on and off the pitch feels like it's just aligned, and it shows you how much, Biggs being the same for Wales and Owen being the same and Johnny Sexton, it just shows how important the 10 is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
On and off the field, as in how much, clout how much power they have in the team. So I thought
you're kind of the barometer for the team, aren't you? Really, and like I said, maybe before Finn was a little bit more up and down, wasn't he, Jim? Probably in terms of his performances, whereas now he is very much a lot more settled, and those errors have come out of his game, and he's just playing with so much confidence at the minute. So I think that's obviously helped them massively. I was speaking to Ben White this morning, actually, because he's obviously here in Toulon, and he was saying that sort of 10-0 down, there was no real panic from them. And they sort of said that they sort of felt like they were that first try for Van Der Merwe, they were almost gifted a little bit. So they almost got gifted a bit of, from England's blitz defence off the scrum. I mean, it was about as bad a scrum defence as you can come across from. I think it was Slade and Lawrence, wasn't it?
Well, it was Lawrence stepped in. Lawrence has stepped in, and I reckon he stepped in. It's the 10's tackle, right? But I reckon he stepped in because if you watch George Ford's shape in defence, he ain't interested in going at Tuipulotu there. It's a 9-12 bigs, right? So, and then you've got the play out the back, and they've come off the blitz, and it's a new. Borta's used the excuse after the game around the combination of 10, 12, 13 have never played together. George Ford's got 90 caps.
I don't think Slade.
Lawrence has got 26 caps.
Yeah.
Yeah, Slade's got 60 caps, and it's a new system. So, I don't know. That doesn't sit well with me, that.
Yeah, Andrew's not happy.
Especially off scrums. Scrums is, I could tell, Jim, I could tell. But scrums is such a difficult, I'm all for England. We worked under Sean Edwards for 10, 12 years with Wales. And we never, ever defended like that because it's such a vulnerable place to defend. Any half mistake off a scrum, it shows that you're probably going to be under your stick. So
especially without your 9 on your inside of the 10 as well, Biggs, on that side.
Exactly. I did feel like that was... There's times to be aggressive in defence, and I actually quite like the way that England are trying to be aggressive in their D, but you have to pick and choose your times, and I didn't think that was the right time, I've got to be honest, and it invited Scotland back into the game. Now, if that game had stayed at 10-0 for another 10, 15 minutes, then you never quite know how the game was going to go, but Ben was also telling me that there's no way that Duhan Van Der Merwe scores a hat-trick for Edinburgh against Zebra on a Friday night in January.
We thought he was playing for England. Did you see the clip?
In the little pitch behind in the little stadium behind Murray.
It's the Hive Stadium.
You like that? The little
the
stadium.
Hive Stadium. Yeah. Sorry, Jim. But
it's not called the Hive. It's called Hive.
Oh, is it just called Hive? God, I couldn't even name it.
Yeah.
He was saying that he's looked after well and he produces on big occasions and. They said he was laughing. The boys were taking the mick out of him a bit for not sort of doing that on a Friday night in January against Zebra.
But he steps up for the big games, and you need
Hive Stadium.
Yeah, he steps up for the big games, and you need X factor players, right? Internationals.
He ain't a player that's playing 30 games a year.
No.
Artificial pitch at the Hive. It's
well. Let's talk about his stats then. He scored 26 tries in 37 tests for Scotland.
That's all right.
It's better than all right, isn't it? And he loves playing the big games against England, right? Because I mentioned Faye Webosa, then it's the same in Wales with Lewis Rees-Zammit. There was games, I'll go back to that Wales-Scotland game up in Edinburgh a few years back when you were playing Biggs, weren't you?
Yeah.
And Lewis Rees-Zammit wins the game with a bit of magic, doesn't it? Yeah. And you need those players. And Duhan's been that player for Scotland, along with Finn. But they are now very comfortable in how they play, whereas England have lacked that, I think, because for one reason or another, we've got someone now in Faye Webosa, but stick him on the end when we've lost. That's our mentality a little bit, whereas I think our mentality completely needs to change now. Some of the old guard need to move along, and we just need to push some of these exciting, talented players and give them the opportunity, because we're playing Ireland and France, We've done what we've done over the last loads of Six Nations periods where we've beaten Wales, we've beaten Italy, and that's it.
Yeah. On a side note,
what are we learning?
Yeah. On a side note as well, and I don't know if anyone's picked up this, but it is quite topical this week to do with mouth guards. And I know Duhan's dentist. He spent about 10 grand on his gnashers and doesn't wear a gum shield.
Wow.
Doesn't wear a gum shield.
I thought they all had to wear gum shields now.
I don't think
You've just hung him out to dry. What have you done, Jim?
I'm telling you, mate, a lot of players don't. Mate, do you think Jasper Wiese wears a fucking gum shield? Like, he doesn't. But yeah, no, I just thought that.
Goodey, are you sure his teeth were done in Edinburgh, or they were not done in
Turkey,
another country?
Yeah, I think he's gone to Turkey for his teeth.
No, they actually don't look like turkey teeth.
Oh,
they look great. He is like, if someone said, right, how do you want to be born?
How good does he look at the minute?
That's what I mean.
If someone said, I was just about to say, how fit does he look at the minute, and lean and strong does he look?
I was thinking about something else. His third leg as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. As if someone said to me, "How do you want to look as a man?" Like, as in, show me a picture. Like, The Rock, no. Jason Momoa, no. David Beckham, no.
Buzz Lightyear.
Duhan Van Der Merwe. I can't even say it. Duhan Van Der Merwe.
Yeah,
that's how I want to look.
Yeah.
The three-legged man. Because I was hearing as well when he was at Worcester. Can you believe that? Sorry, he was at Worcester. That his knee was fucked. That he's had an issue with his knee and stuff like that, and playing.
It's probably the 4G at Worcester.
Well, probably the 4G.
But he's on the 4G at Hive Stadium as well.
But he's being looked after, and that shows you now the level of rugby. Right, you need to be in an environment if you want the best out of players. Sorry, Biggs, bus trips to Poo or wherever you're going, but it's the end of your career, so you're fine. But if you want the best from your players, like especially like him, who's a test match animal, he needs to be looked after. So the kind of stars have aligned as much as the eclipse has gone over for Worcester. It's aligned for someone like Duhan. Goodey, because you've gone all in on social media, and we were chatting about should you, shouldn't you, but you're all in on it, and you feel like you've got a responsibility, which is absolutely fine.
I speak to so many England fans who are now like, right, great, we've had these players, we've got these players, and it's hard saying, look at what Wales have done. You know, with a lot of the elder players, you know, you have to regrow somehow. And, you know, the likes of Joe Marler, the likes of Dan Cole, brilliant players, have been amazing servants. Look at Courts, right? Courtney Laws, we know he's signed for Breathe now. Oh my breath! Like he has 650
apparently. Just what I've heard.
He's done well.
What have you? Did you boys see the announcement video that Breathe did for him as well? By the way, it was some video.
Yeah, it was good.
Fair play to them.
Yeah,
they did a brilliant job.
I was trying to pause it on the contract just to see if I could see the Euros, but obviously you're not going to get. Like I do that on the football contracts as well. It's like you ain't going to see it, but
I genuinely think now. You know, I was at the England A Portugal game at the weekend. I was at the England Day against Portugal game on Sunday. There's a lot of good young talent here in England, but we're reticent to sort of get the broom out now. We've had the World Cup. You know, there's this evolution. Steve keeps talking about it's a young and inexperienced team. It's not. We've got 99 cap Danny Kerr. We've got George Ford on 90 odd caps. Marler, Dan Cole. You know, there's
Jamie Marrow.
There's a lot of experience in that squad, but there are players, I think now, that we're waiting for them to tell us when they don't want to play for England anymore. As in a player just saying, right, I've had enough. Well, we need to be proactive now. There's the likes of, you know, you've got Ellis Genge as your loose head prop. We've got Abano, who has been tearing up trees for Bath as a loose head. You know, Joe Marler can keep playing. Same with Dan Cole. You know, we've got some of these young tight head props. We've got Asher Opoku for Jaw at Sale, who's going really well. Joe Hayes. You know, younger guys that now, you know, you can start to push because there's a number of other players as well, and I don't want to just go through the whole list, but it's time. We talk about evolution. I generally believe now, you know, we'll get to the end of another Six Nations, would have played 5, won 2, lost 3, and there's no evolution. And that's honestly, from you speak to the England fans, what we've seen over the last, you see little shoots of good stuff here and there, but it's more negativity and doom and gloom without an evolution, without an identity. And now's the time for the reset button to be pressed by Steve. And I think he needs a big attack coach to come underneath him and help him evolve.
Goodey, would you take, for argument's sake, I know you said the last couple of seasons they've gone 2 out of 5, haven't they, in the Six Nations? Would you take almost another, say, 2 out of 5 if they were to go with these new young players like your Furbanks, your Finn Smiths, your Dingwalls, your Pearsons, all these guys? Would you accept that, or would you think the England fans would accept that a bit more if they could see progress and perhaps different way of playing? Because there is a massive jump up between club rugby and international rugby, isn't there, in terms of
100%.
You know, you're probably going to need a bit more time. But do you think the whole country would get behind that a little bit more, rather than perhaps where they're obviously not quite comfortable at the minute doing that?
Yeah, I think they would. And the England fans are desperate to get behind England, and they were starting to come round, but we're still in the same position now. Like we were poor against Scotland, so we've got England fans going, we might take 50 against Ireland. We absolutely might if Ireland play to their potential. But I think if you carry on doing the same thing, it's definition of madness, isn't it? You carry on doing the same thing, get the same, and think he's going to. What's the saying? Let me get that right.
Definition. You're asking the wrong man. I'm not great at these things.
It's the definition of madness. Doing the same thing and expecting different results. And so we now need to change and evolve, and play Finn Smith at 10, or let's hope Marcus Smith is fit. We know what George Ford can do. He's good in some parts. He was really good against Wales in the second half. I think he went missing after 20 minutes at the weekend. Let's start to back Finn Smith and have George on the bench against Ireland if Marcus isn't fit, or let's build the team around Marcus. And it's just that thing that
I was just about to say that. Yeah, I was just about to say that, Goody. Would you still keep those players in terms of, like your George Fords, your Danny Cares, for argument's sake, as that experience and backup on the bench or in the squad?
It's a tough balance.
I suppose
isn't
as a safeguard.
Yeah, it's a tough balance
because you don't want to go a little bit like what Wales are like at the minute. Probably Wales are probably 2 or 3 or 4 senior players away from being, potentially a really, really good team. And I know it'll take a little bit of time, but I think Wales have got these youngsters who are playing really, really well. But if they had maybe 2, 3, 4 more, senior players in amongst that squad, maybe not even in the match day 23, but just around the group as well, maybe that is a bit of a transition period for them.
Yeah, but it's also hard, isn't it, as that player that's been 90 odd caps or whatever, and then saying, listen, mate, can you just come along and hold a few bags and help him out? You ain't playing. But you know what it's like, isn't it? It's a really hard balance.
Yeah, I think that just on that, and Goody, I think they've bowed down to public opinion on how they should play. I like seeing England kick. I like seeing England be physical at the breakdown.
You like seeing England kick?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a really effective game plan. I think how they played against South Africa, and at points of the weekend where the ball goes up in the air, there's jeopardy, and then you've got players like the young Faye Boso coming on, and you interject this kind of like these one-off kind of moves off first phase where you've got an Ollie Lawrence or a Manu Tuolangi like running down them channels. I like that. Like, I don't think that the rush defence. You can't just magic a blitz defence. Yes, it takes time. And they're based on Felix Jones with South Africa. Like, I understand the thinking of that, of having the need to evolve that drastically. But I think they've bowed down to public opinion, which I think is the wrong way to go. Like, I understand the Quins and the Harlequins. Sorry, I understand the Harlequins and the Northampton model when you've got the players in that. But Biggs will know better than me because I hardly won any international matches. You need a clear, simple game plan, like Wales. And I say this respectfully, Wales aren't that far away. Like, you look at Wales, like with what they're building.
So with Wales, when we were successful for that 10-year period, we weren't the fanciest team in the world by any stretch, but we stuck to what our identity was, and we had the players to play that game. And you look at Wales now, they simply haven't got the players to play the way that we played 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. So they've had to find a new identity and try and play this faster paced game and try and expand a little bit more. Now, it's going to take time, and it's not going to be easy, but I think I wouldn't make any excuses. If you're a team that are successful and winning, I couldn't care how you play. And that's my opinion. All that matters in international rugby is winning, and I know you've got to grow the game. I know you've got to keep people entertained and things like that. But generally, from winning matches, you keep people entertained and interested in coming along every Saturday or every Six Nations in autumn. And
that's the point. England have won 2 games in the last few Six Nations.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so you stuck between a rock and a hard place.
No, but everyone's talking about evolution. Even Eddie Jones was talking about that.
We haven't ever evolved, have we? Over the last 4 years.
No, you haven't evolved, no, but Evan, there's talk
and we're still
of
getting the same results.
Yeah, because you're looking to try and do stuff like, as in try and do more. We want the attack, we need Owen Farrell to do this. We don't want him to be putting up the up and unders, like the box kicking game is really boring. Like, you need that
in the game, but not to the extent that England
did. Yeah, I know. Well, there was a couple of moments in the World Cup, that was the thing, where it was like, they were kicking.
But that's now programmed and ingrained. I'll go back to, I think it was about 4 minutes before the end. Ben Spencer's put a box kick up and we were slow. It's not necessarily Ben Spencer's fault, but that's what they're all programmed to do. I'm like, we're 2 scores down, lads. Where's the tempo?
Yeah.
Where's the desperation to go and try?
Yeah, that was the one for me where it was like they just kicked, but they didn't know whether
they're
they
programmed
needed to kick.
do it.
Yeah, they didn't know whether to kick. Like, Ben knew it was probably the right option if everyone was set up for the 50-50, but no one was set up for the 50-50 because they're thinking we need to run it.
But also it's probably the right option if you're I don't know, 3 points up or 4 points up or 20 all or whatever it is. But when you're 8 or 9 points behind or 14 points behind, whatever they were, that's probably not going to get you back in the game quickly enough.
Yeah. Anyway, just to end it all, Scotland have got the Calcutta Cup, but England are above Scotland in the world rankings. And that's all that matters, lads.
Yeah.
World rankings.
Well, we're on for the Triple Crown. That's all I know. Okay. Yeah. The Fan Slam. The Fan Slam. But we've got to come
Congratulations, Jim. Yeah. Congratulations, Scotland. You deserved it.
So I see how humble I am now. Just quiet about it.
One day we'll win it again.
Pod.
Rugby pod.